Welcome, and thank you for joining us. In this presentation, we'll walk you through everything you need to know about the Outsider Preservation Initiative grant application process. Our goal is to make sure you feel fully prepared and confident when it comes time to apply. By the end, you'll have clear guidance on eligibility, the application steps, and where to find support and resources. Before we dive in, here's a quick roadmap for today's session. We'll start with a welcome and some background to ground us in the history of the Texas Freedom Colonies Project and how it connects to the Outsider Preservation Initiative. Next, we'll define what preservation means in this context. Then we'll share more about the Outsider Preservation Initiative itself, who we are, our mission, and how we're structured at the University of Virginia. After that, we'll go into details of the grant program, and finally, we'll walk you through how to apply, answer some frequently asked questions, and share tips to help you submit a strong application. So with that overview in mind, let's get started. The Outsider Preservation Initiative is based at the University of Virginia's School of Architecture within the Center for Cultural Landscapes. The center brings together scholars, designers, and community partners to protect and reimagine cultural landscapes. Since 2015, it has highlighted their historical, ecological, and social importance through research, fieldwork, and public engagement. Supported by partners like the Mellon Foundation, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the Jefferson Trust, the center gives OPI both research resources and broad networks that strengthen our work with descendant communities. Here's a look at the team behind the Outsider Preservation Initiative. We work with descendant communities across many states, bringing together scholars, students, and cultural workers to support this preservation movement. What unites us is an engaged research approach, pairing university resources with grassroots knowledge and linking national and international networks back to the local communities that inspire this work. The Outsider Preservation Initiative builds directly on the Texas Freedom Colonies Project, which documented and preserved the history of over 500 historic Black settlements in Texas. That project became the blueprint for our work. OPI expands this model nationally and internationally, supporting descendant communities in Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C., California, Louisiana, North and South Carolina, Tennessee, and Nova Scotia. In this way, OPI is both an outgrowth and an evolution of the Texas Freedom Colonies Project, widening the circle while staying rooted in descendant-led preservation and storytelling. The Texas Freedom Colonies Project began as doctoral research at the University of Texas at Austin in 2014, but it quickly became a long-term commitment to descendant communities. That's why it grew into the Texas Freedom Colonies Project Atlas and Study, an evolving social justice initiative dedicated to preserving Black settlements, cultural landscapes, and heritage while supporting grassroots preservationists. The project is built on three pillars: connect and collect, counter map, and co-create. Connect and collect means to build relationships, gather oral histories, stories, and photos. Counter mapping uses geospatial data to put freedom colonies back on the map. And co-create means to partner with descendants, students, and preservationists to write marker applications, curate exhibits, and raise awareness. The project also mentors students, builds descendant leadership, and responds to community needs. In short, the Texas Freedom Colonies Project is about connection, visibility, and co-creation, and it's really the blueprint for how the Outsider Preservation Initiative works today. This diagram highlights Shankleville, a freedom colony where oral tradition, commemoration, and cultural performance have long been central to preservation. As one of our earliest case studies, it shaped how we understand place, memory, and advocacy. In Shankleville, homecomings and rituals weren't just celebrations. They deepened attachment to place, reinforced identity, and inspired people to protect land and heritage. And this wasn't unique. Across Newton and Jasper counties and beyond, communities gathered for homecomings and events, creating a wider network of care and connection. These practices show that preservation isn't only about maps and markers. It's also about rituals, traditions, and storytelling that keep communities alive even when physical evidence fades. That perspective continues to guide OPI and the values behind the grants we're offering today. An outsider preservationist is someone who uses their gifts to preserve places, often through creative and unconventional methods. Working outside traditional systems, they make the invisible visible, shining light on stories, places, and traditions too often ignored. This could mean quilting migration stories into artwork, recording elders' oral histories, organizing homecomings, or creating digital story maps and films. At its core, being an outsider preservationist means ensuring Black communities, landscapes, and cultural practices are not just remembered, but honored and sustained for generations. Traditional preservation often focuses on structures and formal processes, restoring architecture, applying for designations, and following government standards. But freedom colonies and Black cultural landscapes don't always fit those molds. Some have few or no standing structures, and many of the most meaningful sites, cemeteries, homesteads, and gathering places, aren't in public archives. Outsider preservation takes a different path. Instead of focusing only on what can be restored or registered, it values everyday practices and memories that build resilience. It looks at how descendants preserve memory, encourage return, and recommit to protecting their communities. By placing these approaches side by side, we see why outsider lens is so important. It expands preservation to include places and practices that matter deeply, even when they fall outside official categories. The traditional preservation system was never built with freedom colonies or historic Black settlements in mind. Settlements lost population for many reasons: the Great Migration, racial violence, large infrastructure projects, and economic pressures. With the loss of population came the decline of buildings and physical structures. Often, what's left today is intangible heritage, memory, traditions, and storytelling carried forward by descendants. At OPI, we focus on supporting those spaces where the heart of the community lives on, even when the physical evidence has faded. Even with these histories in mind, traditional preservation regulations often don't fit the realities of Black settlements. The challenges come down to three things: visibility. Settlement patterns and landscapes are often overlooked, and professionals aren't trained to recognize them. Vulnerability. Land loss through air property disputes, disasters, and neglect leaves many communities at constant risk. Access. Descendants often lack entry points to planning, preservation expertise, and resources. Without maps or databases, support is hard to target. Together, these factors show why mainstream systems often fail Black settlements and why initiatives like OPI are needed to bridge the gap. The Outsider Preservation Initiative is a 3-year project funded by the Mellon Foundation's Presidential Initiative. Our work expands on the Texas Freedom Colonies project by asking, how do creative, commemorative practices like homecomings, festivals, storytelling, or art inspire descendants to document, protect, and regenerate endangered freedom colonies? How are descendant practices and needs shaped by region, whether in the Gulf Coast, East Coast, West Coast, or Canada? And what does it look like to truly center descendant perspectives so preservation policies reflect community priorities? These questions guide our work and shape the grant program we're sharing with you today. Our mission at OPI is to center descendant voices in preserving Black cultural landscapes. And we do this through 4 pillars. One, to create a portal, a virtual commemorative landscape that shares stories, events, and multimedia, building on the Texas Freedom Colonies Atlas. We will develop preservation pedagogy, non traditional teaching and learning that equips both descendants and students with tools for public history, preservation, and community work. We will create communities of practice, bringing together descendants and scholars through workshops and projects to co create solutions, and provide grants, supporting descendant and artist teams to create commemorations, festivals, art, and performances that honor Freedom Colony founders. Together, these pillars guide how OPI carries out its mission and frames the grant program that we're sharing today. We're excited to announce that our grant application is now open for descendant-led projects. Because of the overwhelming response in our first round, we need to keep things tight this time. The grant portal will close as soon as we reach 100 applications. That means if you're the 101st submission, we won't be able to accept it. In a perfect world, we would fund everyone, but we have to work within our capacity. So don't wait. Start early and submit as soon as you're ready. For this cycle, we're focusing on specific regions where OPI is actively building connections. Applications are open from California, Texas, Louisiana, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Nova Scotia. These regions weren't just chosen at random. They reflect historic migration patterns of Black settlement descendants. Families began in Virginia and the Carolinas and endured forced migration west into Texas and Louisiana during slavery. Later, they moved further west into California. Nova Scotia tells another important story. After the War of 1812, thousands of Black refugees who had fought for the British resettled there and founded more than 50 settlements. By including Nova Scotia, we honor that northern diasporic story, which began long before U.S. emancipation. Together, these regions form a living map of Black migration, resilience, and community making. And OPI's grants are designed to strengthen those connections across time and place. Our grants come in two types: seed grants and revival projects. Seed grants range from $500 to $10,000 for projects already underway that need extra support. These often focus on startup efforts, planning, or small events. Revival projects range from $11,000 to $25,000 for larger initiatives that bring descendants together, spark return to Black settlements, and recommit communities to preservation. Whether you're just getting started or ready to expand, these two options are designed to meet you where you are. To be eligible, here are the basics. Applicants must be descendants of Black settlement founders or leaders. You don't need to be a trained preservationist or professional. In fact, we encourage projects led by community members. Projects must be based in one of our focus regions: Virginia, including DC, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and Texas and Louisiana, California, or Nova Scotia, Canada. At least half of the planning and execution must directly involve descendant community members. If you meet these requirements, we strongly encourage you to take a look at our application, apply, and share your vision. Beyond eligibility, we want to be clear about the kinds of applicants we're prioritizing. This grant is for under-resourced groups, upstart efforts, or grassroots projects without access to big institutional funding. It's for those working on smaller budgets, where this support can really make a difference. We're also looking for applicants working outside traditional preservation systems, not tied to universities, government, or large nonprofits. Most importantly, we want to uplift efforts rooted in descendant communities, especially those with limited financial or organizational resources. In short, we're prioritizing projects where this funding can be catalytic, helping small and creative efforts grow in ways they may not otherwise. Let's move into some frequently asked questions. First, who can apply? Applications are open to descendants of freedom colonies and Black settlements. Projects must be based in one of our focus locations. Another question we hear is, what is a historic Black settlement? There isn't just one definition. These are communities established by African Americans, often after emancipation between 1863 and 1930, but they're described in many ways: freedom colonies, Black towns, settlements, or simply communities. What matters most is how descendants define and honor those places. OPI's role is not to impose on one fixed definition, but to support the many ways communities carry forward their history and memory. For this initiative, descendants are people connected to the founders, institution builders, or early residents of historic Black settlements founded between 1863 and 1930. And this doesn't have to be through bloodline alone. Your connection may come through family stories, oral history, leadership roles, or community recognition. The application invites you to describe that relationship so we can understand your authentic ties to the place and its history. Do you need to live in the state where the project takes place? The answer is no. You do not have to live there to apply. While the project itself must take place in one of our focus regions, applicants can live anywhere. What matters is that your work is rooted in and connected to that location. Which project activities are eligible? Almost any creative practice, as long as it helps reactivate and preserve descendant communities. This could include films, performances, digital storytelling, archival work, public art, exhibitions, oral histories, and so much more. If your project shines a light on the history, memory, or cultural practices of Black settlements, it's eligible for consideration. Before you get started, here are some tips for submitting a strong application. Clearly explain how your project impacts the community and connects to OPI's mission. Highlight descendant involvement at every stage: planning, decision making, and execution. Demonstrate the need, especially if your project supports under-resourced communities. And be specific about outcomes, timelines, and the use of funds. Keeping those points in mind will help your application stand out. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about the Outsider Preservation Initiative and our grant program. Please stay connected with us. Follow us on social media and visit our website, which is captured here in the QR code. If you have any questions, you can always reach us by email. We're here to support you as you prepare your projects. And one last reminder, while the portal has a posted deadline, it will close early if we receive 100 applications. So don't wait. Submit your project as soon as you're ready. Your stories, your places, and your practices matter, and we can't wait to see the powerful projects you'll bring forward.